Hi everyone, this is Tom, and this week's character is Vallo for Rob, a Githyanki wizard. Neutral, evil, everything like that. I'm going to get into it pretty quick. He was a good character to do. Always interesting to do something that I've never drawn before, which was a Githyanki. They're pretty... they got a pretty in-depth lore as far as things go, but I've never actually drawn one because I've always really hated how they looked. And when I first found out that it was a Githyanki, I was of course relieved that it was going to be something new, something some uncharted territory, which is cool. But usually when you're asked to do something like that and things are a little bit more flexible, it's also can be really thrilling when you're given the chance to maybe put your own twist on something or develop it in a way that's still faithful to the original, but you get to kind of straighten it out a little bit, chiropractor style, and lay it out in a way that it's just not embarrassing to you. Sort of, I'm trying to think of like a polite way to say it, but it's kind of like there are certain things in character designs and creature designs that I think every artist has their own list of things that just drives them crazy or they never want to see. Mine often revolve around noses, as an example, and I never like characters, especially like goblinish characters that have big, massive witchy poo noses, you could say, or like pushed up gorilla pig nose. Gorilla nose is actually cool, but it's more like an upturned nose look. It just looks really uncool. It looks really kind of dorky and dumpy, and not in like a cool monster ugly way. It just looks really just novice. That sounds like a rude word to use it to describe it, but anyway, it's one of those things. Just sort of the pushed up nostril dumb noses. It's like someone was trying to draw a skull nose and didn't know how to make it work, and that's a problem for me. Then that's what the Githyanki to me has been. I've always just stopped there and I've just walked out, and it's not a good way to do it. There's a lot of good ways to do that, and a lot of the stress for this was released or was let off when I was reading it, and the character was described by Rob as being an ugly individual. So ugly for a Githyanki made me feel a little bit more relaxed. So he's actually not too gruesome, or he's not disfigured or marred or mangled or too disrupted as far as a Githyanki thing. But in my mind, when I was thinking that he's an ugly one, it kind of made it even all the easier to draw a Githyanki. So I'm going to go through his description, and one thing you also might notice is the timer on this video is only 30 minutes. I've decided I'm going to do the videos 30 minutes from here on out. It makes it a lot less daunting to get around to it. That's one minor thing, but also it lowers the chance of overlap between subjects, and it also I've tried to as my best to not overlap content across videos as much. So there are sometimes things when I revisit the exact same topic or subject or tell the same story, but I've tried to keep that to a minimum, and keeping things to 30 minutes is going to help with that. It also keeps things more focused and deliberate and a bit more interesting. And I can see the data on how people view it, and people usually only watch about 9 minutes of these. And if I go for a shortened time, just make them not as long, I want to have enough time to go in depth, but also short enough that it's not a huge chore to watch them. So half an hour, I think, is going to be a format that I'm going to try for a while. If it's too short, let me know. I'll see if I can crank it up a bit. And if it's still too long, or you want to see what it's like if I do like a 20 or 15 or 10 or 5-minute video, we might do that too. It depends. As long whatever the peak of quality is, that's where I want to stop. So anyway, I'm going to get into this. So enough of an aside. So from Rob, my character was one I played for the longest I've played any D&D character. He was used in a 4th generation campaign for about a year, and was a Githyanki wizard named Vallo. He had high intelligence and constitution, decent dexterity and wisdom, and poor charisma and even worse strength. He was a neutral, evil wizard who had been with the party for a long time and was constantly messing around with rituals The only real long-lasting spell in the 4th edition. He's known for casting Arcane Look on most doors he expected to use more than once, and it was through the use of that spell that he decided to take over a base the party had cleared of bandits. Despite being evil, Vallo was extremely loyal to his party for many months and would help them in any way he could, though they eventually began to begrudge him for his sinister advice. He advocated torture, executing prisoners, and stealing in order to reach their goals, as it would put them at the least risk of being killed themselves. The rest of the party, being generally good people, began ostracizing him and even let one of their new party members beat him within an inch of his life without lifting a finger to help after he had insulted the companion. After this, Vallo, being a high-level wizard, created a portal back to his old master's tower and began planning his revenge. He had green tan skin, and was quite ugly, and wore black robes. He had tons of spell component bags and used a medium-length staff to channel his magic through. He had a hood he would sometimes wear to hide some of his monstrous features. He had a large brimming spell book that he would constantly add to with new spells. So that's Rob. Sorry, that's not Rob. That's Vallo. So pretty fascinating character as far as things go. Githyanki, and I like characters that border on evil, and sometimes, yeah, or like they're sort of willing to cut corners a little bit here and there as need be. I mean, I figure it depends on who you're fighting, oftentimes, but I don't know. Like, I don't have problems with torturing orcs, I guess you could say. But as far as back to the process video so far, as I was getting used to the setup, I've got the software working better. It's capturing the screen better and everything, but I did forget I missed recording the first portion of the character, so it did jump in a little bit late where I've got the figure sorted out. But in this case, I didn't do a robust skeleton and muscular system. I wanted to try staying loose and getting into it. A lot of stuff has changed in my brain and how it works in the last little while, in good ways, in constructive ways, and the way that I draw and the way that I think about drawing and the way that I want to draw has shifted and grown a bit, and it'll be neat to explore it as it goes. But I'm gonna make a separate video as like an update. But don't worry, this stuff's not gonna change. But yeah, other than that, process is usually quite similar. Getting the frame and all the characters and the lines and colors and things pulled up. It's sort of a nice breakdown, and still really nice and standard compared to how I normally work, where you start off with a sketch, have like a nice color wash behind it, just to kind of tone the canvas, and then putting in a fewer, more limited range of colors, each on a separate layer, and each layer is one color, and it's set up to be a mask, so you can just add and remove the amount of that color that you want, and that it's a good way to go. I find, for me, it allows for a lot of flexibility, and it's pretty quick and simple, and you don't have to worry about losing a color if you're doing a lot of mixing and blending. And then if you want color variation, you can add that as much as you want, with either just straight up paint over layers, where you just make one normal layer and just start painting, or adding different colors on different layers that are on top of the one that you want to mix up, or even if you have one color layer and it's set up as a full-on silhouette, solid sort of mask of an object, then you can use the clipping mask effect of subsequent layers to colorize different sections, different things, and then doing rendering on top of that. The layer, if you can see it on the far right column, the deep occlusion, and that's just straight black in this case. Typically, I'd recommend having a certain amount of color in your shadows, depending on the circumstances, and then doing all of your rendering together on one layer can just kind of help all together, keep things pretty consistent. And then putting a frame around it is for just making it so you don't have to constantly be cleaning up the border or worrying about losing your shape or your silhouette or however you want to frame it. It's pretty good system. It's the one thing that I've still kept consistent, which is really great. It's a fun part of it. Unless you're working on things like fur, then it can drive you a little crazy. But you just do that later on over top, and it helps kind of make things run a little bit better. So as far as going about taking the description and turning it into to a design, I went through the whole thing and just took out little point notes where I could, rather than needing to reread a wall of text over and over again, even though this is quite a modest amount of information that Rob sent me, but taking major elements that can be obviously represented visually, and then making a point form list so you can just glance on that. You can cross things off as you get to them. In my case, it was things like Githyanki, Wizard, Neutral Evil, Green Tan Skin, Quite Ugly, Black Robes and Hood, tons of spell component bags, medium length staff, large brimming spellbook, and then notes on staff like High Intelligence and Constitution, Decent Dexterity and Wisdom, Poor Charisma, Worse Strength, Extremely Loyal, things like that. Anything that might be able to pop up or inspire me or give sort of a clue that you can pick up on. As far as developing the look for this character and the way that he was dressed, and it was pretty much just point by point, a very dry approach, but that's a part of what I've really come to sort of appreciate now that my brain has changed. I'm trying to think of a way to put it. It'd be nice to do a whole video, but while I've got you here, it's sort of in my experience in the last few months, I've sort of started to realize that it's almost like there's two schools of thought when it comes to character design, and one of them is starting with the look and starting with the character. There is, when you start with the look, that's usually bound up more with the committee thinking, where it's like, how do we appeal to this demographic? How do we feel about this? This doesn't look cool. This isn't going to sell. Or like, this is hot right now. And I mean, that's sort of a bit more vain. It never really comes out that way when people are talking about it. But they design stuff because of how they like how it looks, rather than building up a character. And people with this mindset seem to think that if they have characters that take things from other characters or are inspired by other characters, that's going to lend to their popularity. Or like, they think that the way that a character looks is the deciding factor towards people liking that character. I think, that's really what I'm trying to say, is that they think that so they think the way that the character looks is going to have an effect on how that character is taken, or is liked or loved, or what have you. And I don't think of it that way. I know I've said similar things. It feels like it's new to me. There's something different in the way that I'm approaching it, but I'll have to work it out. But there are so many characters that you know and love, or think are cool, or have some kind of appeal. The thing that makes you love them isn't the way that they look. It's the way that they make you feel. And that's done through character development and story and meaning, and experience with that character. People wouldn't. A go-to example that's really good is Darth Vader. Darth Vader looks really dumb. We all think he's really cool. Everybody loves Darth Vader, and he is really cool. But that design would never be designed today. It would never be even sketched down. It's got a weird little pig nose. It looks really cheap and dorky, and it's got like a big dumb. It's really dumb. He is, but still he's very cool. He sells. He's intimidating. You feel like a badass if you play a video game as him, as long as it's a good video game. And something about it works. And I think it's that the way that he looks is more of an icon or a flag representing the character that you know. When you see him, it calls back to the experiences that you've had with him. You know how he acts, how he feels in a scene, the sort of energy that he projects, the sort of charisma that he has. And then now it doesn't matter what he looks like, because that's just shorthand for who you're dealing with. And that can go for any sort of character. Like even Mario. I don't think kids would like Mario if he wasn't already associated with having a good time playing a really fun video game. He's not cool, and I don't mean like backwards hat and sunglasses cool. It's a really dopey character. If Mario came out today, he would be relegated to daycares, like wall stickers on daycares. But it's because of that formal relationship that you've built up. And so basically, what I'm trying to get across is, if you can't write a good character, you can't design a good character. No one's going to like the character. So basically, you're not. What am I trying to say here? Yeah, it's that's a matter to it. There's a thing there where there's a lot of characters that are long lasting and lingering, or have some sort of surprise hit. There's some sort of appeal and some sort of sudden popularity that you wouldn't expect. And you look at them and they're ugly, or they're bizarre, or they're dull, or they're tacky. But that never gets in the way of what people like. There's one example and that I can think of, and it's the Garrus character from the Mass Effect games. He's this weird alien. He looks like he's a weird bird man made of rock. And he's one of the most liked characters, most fantasized about characters, most charming characters, and respected characters. But he's a monster. He's ugly and kind of tacky looking, but he's a smash hit, and it's because of who the character was. I don't think anybody really knows the names of any other characters of that race or with that outfit. But he's sort of an example of what I put that in there. Like, you'd never expect the hit, the smash sensation that he had over the fans of the Mass Effect series. But it was because of the role that he played in the story. And I think, you can design a character that people will click on if they see it in an ad. You can design a character that would look great on a t-shirt, but that character on a t-shirt that gets clicked on gets thrown into a dumpster really easily. There's no love, there's no lingering memory there. It's just such a ethereal, vaporous waste of effort and space. And if that character was grounded in something, then it would have an effect on people. Then it wouldn't matter what they looked like, because people would want to buy that image because they love that character. I guess it's kind of ranting and raving, and I'm kind of going in circles here, and I feel like I've said a similar thing quite a number of times before, but it's really kind of struck me a lot lately, where it's I guess it's just frustrating, where you can design something that would work, design something that would dress that character perfectly, but then somebody just comes in and arbitrarily says, "Oh, I don't like that part. Can you change that part because of this reason?" Or they watched a show on AMC or something, and they wanted it to look more like a character from a show they like, and that's just really missing the point. It's just I want to keep this really family friendly, but yeah, it's just so vapid and pointless and meaningless. Or someone who, like, if you've ever dealt with a writer who they won't give you a character. And this is something more where you're going to be working in like a studio situation, whether it's a video game or less so movies, because they actually are built around characters from the get-go, or like comic books or something. But if the character isn't fleshed out and grounded and they're a real person, then you can't design them. You're just decorating. You're just marketing. You're not a design. You're not a concept artist. You're just marketing. You're just making a walking billboard for a product. You need to elaborate on a soul. You need to. You're manifesting, like when a character is written out and is a fleshed out character that with personality and behavior, like the way that they look is their visual representation is a manifestation of what's written down on the page. It's a strange transition and it takes some work, but if the consistency, if the visuals and the description don't rhyme, you don't have a character design. You have marketing. But I'm gonna dive off that. I'm probably gonna try to avoid that topic until I can formulate it into maybe some sort of video presentation. But I hope I'm making more sense. It's got to be built on who the character is, not just what they look like. And it's sort of a difference between just concept art and world building. And world building is the ultimate process and gives the best results. But as far as the design itself, Vallo is not a bad character. I just wanted to pour into that topic a little bit. Vallo is just totally great, totally fine. Nice and simple, to the point. You're sort of an honest reject, and that's really good. But usually starting with the pose, there's doing concept art. There's often going to be times when you need to do things like T poses, where the character is in just such an ultra neutral stance, so that 3D modelers can build it more accurately to your specs. But if you're doing production art, or you're trying to pitch a character, or really explore different visual things, you're going to want to give them some sort of pose and communicate something with their body language. For Vallo, because he was quite a simple character, at least through the description that I was given, and there's nothing wrong with a simple character at all. I was kind of wanting to do something that was sort of like an old Dracula kind of pose, or like some sort of like something from a Vincent Price movie with like a horror pose with just the sort of twisted over a little bit, arm coming up with the cape sort of blocking his face. Something a bit dynamic but sort of sneaky, like you kind of walked in on him, or he's casting a dark spell. Something a bit more frantic looking and spindly. He's weak, he's little, he's kind of frail and scrawny, and he's a Githyanki, and he's evil, and he's kind of a sneak, and he's got his own lair. I thought that'd be kind of fitting, and also it is good for me to remember to try to have a bit more, make sure that these characters are having a dynamic pose. It can help sell a design. Even it's sort of a silly thing, but the character and quality of the drawing itself can make somebody lean a certain way. But it's the sort of thing you can't really prepare for or try to manipulate someone around, I don't think. At least I probably wouldn't really bother. As long as you're putting the effort in, I think that'll show and it'll help. And if the pose matches who the character is, then that's an excellent thing. Which I just did a huge rant about. So yeah, going through, I had my point form list. So being evil and sort of a wizard, it's good to have this like sneaky sort of the pose, this frantic pose that I was just describing. But things like black robes and a hood. So typically, if you're going to do black robes, first thing that goes to mind is like you have some Satanist LARPers posing in a graveyard on a Saturday night. The sort of robes that you would get, you go down to the floor. They've got the big sleeves and the hood that you see all the time, just like kind of like Halloween store robes. And one thing that is really good to do as a concept artist is taking something like that, like black robes, and designing something that isn't what comes up on Google image search, something that comes up, the first thing that comes to your mind, but designing something that is only held to that description, or like that's the only thing that it has to do is fit that description. The simplest description you can give it is black robes. So anything that comes before that or beside that can just sort of be discarded. So what even if it's like iconic or predictable or standard, as long as it has that simple description that matches, go with that. See if it works out. And so in this case, it was I didn't want something that billowed out too much like a cape, that filled out the back of the form, that dragged on the floor, or was so long and I guess fine a material that it would just sort of be too smooth and billowy. Having something that split down the middle, I guess bifurcated into some points, would add to the evilness, and also include in like sort of, it's almost like he's got the one sleeve on the arm. It's still a hint to the wizard sleeve, like the big old, almost like a choir robe kind of sleeve, but it's got it's a bit more evil and spooky. So it's just something simple like that. It could even be like old real robes that are just extremely tattered and conveniently tattered so that they look like an evil shape. But that's one way to sort of work around it. And you could call those robes, and they are black, or at least they're not purely black. I still wanted to have it keep the color, but keep some sort of color tone of the piece going through, and it's sort of a live black, not a dead black. If you were to go with a neutral black, that could really just fall flat and look kind of nasty and dingy and dull. But this is including color with your grays is a great way to help keep the gray objects alive. They can get too stale and nasty. He's got a triangular collar sort of piece that's part of the hood coming down, and that's sort of like a beard shape, a wizard beard. And as far as the hood goes, again, trying to avoid that basic stereotypical hood shape, and made it sort of like a skull cap almost, where there's holes for his ears, and it just gives him a little bit more of it is an uglier look. It's not as dignified, and without marring his face up too much or making it too ugly or less monstrous, it just kind of helps make him look a little bit sillier that way. Added some red to the shoulders to help add some differentiation and some clarity in the pose. That could even come in handy for any time you see him posing. That would just help give some direction to his figure as far as that goes. And then covering himself in pouches and of spell ingredients. I thought it'd be cool to have like a crisscrossing web of leather straps rather than a bunch of belts. So it's something that would be hung up around his shoulders, and it would spiral down around his chest and his abdomen and then his thighs, and covered in different pouches and satchels and containers. And then as far as the book goes, big is big, but I thought something so big that it had to be carried on his back, even to the point of making him hunch over, could be a bit more fun that way, with lots of I've got like a hinged cover, hinting at some sort of extra functionality or of some kind, or it could be used as some sort of stand, setting it up on a table, and it's actually read horizontally, who knows. Just hints at extra functionality and detail and history and cultural significance, like it might be from a different place. Bits of different types and shapes of paper, as if spells from other places were pulled in. And this here would be a bookmark. I was at a Ukrainian Orthodox church in the winter, and they had some kind of a prayer book or a hymnal of some kind, a liturgical book, and it had multiple of these ribbon for, like you've probably seen before, like the ribbon bookmarks that mark things up, but it had a whole bunch, and they're all different colors, and I thought that was quite striking. I took a picture, of course, but I thought it'd be neat to also, of course, include different types and shapes of ribbon and little decorations and how that goes. So simple character, designed simply, but all things considered, really fun to do. I'm really grateful for Rob for joining in and making me draw a Githyank, even though I never wanted to in the past. But I had a really good time drawing this. I hope, let me know if 30 minutes works, you guys. This is for the R&D free character art lottery. I'll be keeping you guys up to date on when that's coming back, because it is. Follow me on Twitter at R&D Fantasy for updates and information. And if you have questions, comments, or anything, just let me know. And I love answering them, so I'm going to be getting engaged, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So as far as things go, it's good to be back. I'll be updating everybody on how things are going to go, and I expect it to be a pretty big hit. I think people are going to really like where this is going to be going in the coming months. So hope it helped.